Final Fantasy Tactics is one of the most foundationally impactful games I've ever played. You're watching Rayl Deal Games, and today I'm talking about my favorite game of all time. Tactics is something my father picked up in either '01 or '02, meaning I played it for the first time at 6 or 7 years old. From the jump, Tactics dominated my family's TV set, with my brothers, father, and I rotating turns on the PS1 just to play this game. We all would see each of the climactic moments of the story and some of the hardest lines in gaming history, such as Delita's "blame yourself or God" line over and over again. Because of the way my family and I played games back in the day, we would all be at relatively the same place in the game's plot, with the only real difference between us being which jobs we had discovered and mastered. This was before the internet would become widely accessible, meaning our knowledge regarding jobs and strategies formed within a confined conversation between player and spectator, bereft of any outside influence. This also meant that certain fights stood out much more than others because all of us would get stuck on them. First and foremost was Dorder Trade City, second would be Zeekden, and third would be Riovan's Castle. Riovan's Castle would cause either my father or one of my siblings, I don't remember which, to restart because you see, this fight is infamous for soft or outright hard locking progress through the game. How hard the boss fight against Wiegraf is entirely dependent upon which jobs the player has, what equipment they prepared beforehand, and what items they are able to use. This is where my love of difficult challenges in games was born, as each of these caused my brothers, father, and I to take a step back, reevaluate, and theorize possible solutions to progress. The fact that one of us had to restart the game from the beginning because of Riovan's Castle taught us to keep multiple saves in every single game we played moving forward, despite the fact that it really wasn't something games typically necessitated at the time. While this craving for challenge definitely impacted my gaming tastes, one of the real influences Tactics had upon me was its writing. In my opinion, Tactics has the best writing in the entire history of video games. There's a real command of the English language exhibited via its various translations, and as such, every time this game has been re-released, there's been some change or shift in the translation to justify another playthrough. At the time when I first played this game though, I was still reading things like The Magic Treehouse by Mary Pope Osborne, Goosebumps by R.L. Stine, animal nonfiction books, and one brief futile attempt at comprehending Jaws. Unlike Jaws, Tactics had the added benefit of being a video game, which made the sections of the text that I didn't immediately understand still engaging because I wanted to see why it was that my troop and I were traveling the world and becoming embroiled in all of the political conflicts occurring in the game. Because I would get to see each scene multiple times, I actually began to understand what was happening a bit more each time, and something my father started to do as we continued through the game was that he would assign us speaking roles and we'd all read the text together as a family as we progressed the plot. Funnily enough, this is actually how I said my first curse word, bastard, as I sounded my way through the word before my father could stop me. The reason this is such an impactful, life-changing aspect of this game is because it created an interest in me for reading difficult texts, something that I would bring back into the real world when I'd read things like this series of paranormal phenomenon books that were essentially laid out as a juxtaposition of skeptic and superstitious viewpoints for various high-profile cases of unexplained phenomenon or unsolved mysteries. This is actually where words like phenomenon and paranormal entered my lexicon, and this interest in difficult and sometimes esoteric, age-inappropriate texts would lead me to read Animal Farm in 5th grade, The Time Machine in 6th, Emily Dickinson's poetry in 7th, and Dracula in 8th, writings of which foundationally affected my reading comprehension skills. A love of reading and budding literary analysis skills began with Tactics, as it was much more difficult than anything else I had access to at the time. Beyond this, Tactics is where my family's love of Final Fantasy began, prompting us to play Final Fantasies 7 through 10 shortly afterward. There's multiple aspects of Tactics' deeper themes that completely went over my head back in the day, but one of the ones that didn't is the political ideals associated with Maluda and Wiegraf, the siblings that sought to bring down the kingdom of Ivalice, and the juxtaposition of Delita and Algus, two individuals in Ramza's social sphere with diametrically opposed viewpoints. Growing up poor, the idea of poor people being lesser is implied via every interaction I would have with other classmates, teachers, religious leaders, or members of the community. There's a flaring of the nostril, being seen while paradoxically maintaining invisibility, and stark savagery to the tone of voice that is always levied against those seen as lesser. And the great social divider in human history is absolutely financial disparity. This is why these particular characters were so easy to comprehend, even when understanding them to any degree required I expand my vocabulary. Wheatgrass and Maluda want an equality between the wealthiest and most politically powerful people and the poor, unfortunate, and destitute. Delita and Tetra represent those people of poverty, even though they don't quite suffer the same since they are directly connected to Ramza and Alma, who use their influence to improve the station of their impoverished friends. Algus, now Argath, represents the wider, more common social opinion amongst the elites, the same position that Daisadarg holds in secret, and is in conflict with what Barbaneth believed. It puts Ramza in this middle ground both belief and blood-wise, since he's a legal Beow bastard. The beauty of Tactics writing is tied to the way this particular motif of wealth inequality and the disenfranchisement of man is represented via the wonderful writing in the game itself. When I was young, I used to view the characters in the game as my personal family, which is why I'd always rename Ramza to my name or Rayl, one of the two. Zalbag was a symbolic representation of my brother Kyle, and Daisadarg was my eldest brother Jeremy. My dad was in this game too, and he's here.
Show these brothers of yours what it is. What it is to be a knight.
Whoa! My dad sometimes watches my videos, and I'm sure he's laughing his ass off right now. He's never needed to worry though, because he always ended up in all of our saves back in the day as dead, because that's what his gamertag was when we were growing up before he switched it over to Greybeard because of how much he vibed with the Greybeards in Skyrim. Identifying so personally and strongly with Ramza is part of what makes Tactics' motifs and themes so important in my life, as I've always viewed the core root of all societal evils to be the direct product of some people having more wealth and power than others. Invariably, this leads to a trouncing upon the poor, which is exactly what the ruling elite do in Tactics, save for one man, Delita himself. Following Tetra's murder at the hands of Argath, he disappears, and this is where one of the most interesting aspects of Tactics' story happens. The roles of Ramza and Delita flip, with Ramza taking the position of poverty and Delita being crowned king, putting himself in a place of power to actually affect change upon the world. It's one of the key reasons Delita is one of my favorite characters to ever come out of this franchise. It's the denouement afforded by the introduction of Wheatgrass and the conflict between him and Ramza. Wheatgrass is not a villain, at least not at first, meaning the first chapter in Tactics actually places the player in the position of the story's villain, even if Ramza's support of society's ills is informed by ignorance. Silence is a statement of support, even if that is the byproduct of benightedness. At some point, it is our responsibility to become informed about the issues of the world, including those that never directly impacted our personal lives. This is one of the many lessons I learned by playing Tactics over the years, and while the complete complexity of this particular theme is not something that I understood by the end of my first playthrough, a pared down facsimile of it is something that was forever imprinted upon the deepest corners of my mind. The driving force of my life has been the eternal labor against poverty, of falling back into that hell from whence I've come, and it's Final Fantasy Tactics that opened my eyes to the path I needed to follow, and is how Tactics truly changed my life. And that's the video. What's one game that foundationally changed the way in which you view the world? Let's discuss the media that made us all into who we are in the comments below, and while you're down there, consider smashing the like button, subscribing, and ringing the notification bell. If you really liked the video, hyping it up would be a massive help and would ensure more people would get to see it. I make new gaming videos every Wednesday and Friday, and you may like my other and future work. This month I've got videos about Fallout 1 and 2, Dead Space 2, and Def Jam Fight for New York on the docket, and you won't want to miss out. If you want to see those, stick around.
Stick around.
Regardless of what you choose to do, thank you for keeping it real with Rayl Deal Games. Have an awesome day, everyone.